Hi, my discussion will be over the Rohingya crisis. So, just to give a little background on this, the Rohingya people are defined as a stateless ethnic group who predominantly follow Muslim and Islam practices and reside in the state of Myanmar. However, the government of Myanmar doesn't particularly like them very much and pretty much just sees them as illegal immigrants from Bangladesh. So, this has caused a lot of discriminatory issues against them. It all started in 2017 when they were pretty much being forced out of the country. And so that has caused some tension between them. Myanmar's reasoning for this was they just wanted to reinstate the country's stability. So none of the Rohingya people have ever had full citizenship, but they could, before 2014, they could get these things called white cards, which is pretty much just temporary residency. But then in 2014, the government held its first census, and long story short, made the Rohingya people with white cards identify themselves as something that they weren't, and in turn got their white cards taken away. Also in the Myanmar state, they have to ask government permission for many things, even the simplest things, to shave their face, to get married, to move homes, just things like that has caused the Rohingya people to not want to stay there anymore. So they started fleeing, or not fleeing, but some of them decided to move out. And then in 2017, the Rohingya people were deemed responsible on for an army attack on the Myanmar army, and then the Myanmar government deemed them as a terrorist group. So they started burning down their homes and their residencies and just forced absolutely as many as they could of them out of the country. So they went to places like Bangladesh, Thailand, India, Malaysia, and Indonesia, and they said they will not return until the Rohingyas said they will not return until their civil rights are guaranteed and are back. So many countries now, including the US, are putting pressure on Myanmar to help the Rohingya people get their rights back and get back into the country that they belong in. So the effects of this now have been pretty catastrophic. People are even calling it a genocide. So there's just lots of tension and discriminatory issues between the two. I'll read this quote from the World Report article of 2024. The military has launched airstrikes on schools, hospitals, religious sites, and camps for displaced people. On January 7th, a military airstrike on a village killed 17 civilians who were attending church, including 9 children. On February 5th, the military launched an airstrike on a school in the Myanmar country, killing 4 students and injuring another 27 civilians. Overall, there have been growing numbers of attacks on education and grave violations against children. On September 5th, the military bombed an internally displaced persons camp in the country of Myanmar, killing 8 children and 2 women. So just a lot of violence going on solely based on discrimination and hate, and it's really sad to hear, honestly. But in this crisis, the dominant group would be the Myanmar government and the ethnic group within the country. And then the subordinate lesser group would be the Rohingya people who are being tormented and forced out of the country. So the differences here are mainly religious and ethnic, because there's just a lot of discriminatory issues against them because they are so different. And the Myanmar people who live in the country are predominantly Buddhist, and the Rohingya who are predominantly Muslim or Islam. So the social stratification system in the Myanmar country is mainly based on ethnicity and religion, and this has been at the root of the problem for a long time. Because of this, there's also economic barriers for the Rohingya people, because of their limited resources to education and job opportunities. And then there's also legal and political differences because there's no opportunities for the Rohingya people to advance. So this is a very closed system specifically for the Rohingya people. The dominant group is the Buddhists from Myanmar, and the lesser group is the Rohingya Muslims facing discriminations. Yep, like I said, this is a very closed system of stratification, especially for the Rohingya people, because there's just no opportunity for them to move around because they are seen as the lesser group because of their religion and ethnicity. So the obvious intergroup interactions is between the ethnic groups, 1 between the Rohingya people and 2 between the Myanmar Buddhists, between themselves, but between the two there is severe tension and violence between the groups. There are many obvious human rights that have been violated during the Rohingya crisis. The first one, the right to life. There's been mass killings, and that has been taken away from them. Then there's the right to be free from torture, and many of the people of the Rohingya nation have been tortured and acted upon with violence. Then there's the right to citizenship and nationality, and as well as the right to education, and they've been denied these things because of their religion and ethnicity in the country that they were in. There's some more, but those are the main ones. And then I couldn't find much on the MPI website about my country, so I looked on some other ones and found some good quotes. So in the country of Myanmar, most of the population is not in good economic health. For the Rohingya people, there is no access to healthcare, education, citizenship, or the right to own property, and it is majorly overcrowded where the Rohingya people are. So from the UNDP's article, new data shows that less than 25% of the population in Myanmar managed to secure steady incomes to live above the poverty line. So about 25% of them are in poverty. However, 1 in 54 are actually affected of the Myanmar Buddhist population. The migration of the Rohingya people have impacted their labor industry, though, because most of them were working in labor industries and labor conditions, and that has also impacted their agricultural economy, I guess. And then in the past 6 months, they've also had many natural disasters in the country of Myanmar, which hasn't helped their situation at all. But an article said that their economy is doing as well as it can be for the crisis they are actively still going through. So now, other countries, including the US, are fighting for the Rohingya rights, and there are many organizations around the world supporting refugees that are fleeing from the country because of the discrimination they are still facing today.